Hello and welcome to What the Luxe with me, Fred Moore.
And me, Anand Sharma.
Together we lead Matter of Form, a design consultancy specialising in brand, digital experience and content. And this is a podcast that calls time on tired ideas of luxury.
Alongside industry luminaries and thought leaders, we explore what truly defines category-leading products and services.
At Matter of Form, we're lucky to get to know exquisite hotels and hotel brands, and it doesn't get much better than the Savoy London, a British icon with a rich history and a phenomenal place in the capital's cultural landscape. It's a story over the last 130 years or more, is intertwined with the great people and events of those eras. So how does such an established and landmark institution change with the times, and present a fresh vision that is contemporary and relevant, that loses none of the magic of its glorious past? Today, we're delighted to welcome to the podcast Franck Arnold, MD and Regional VP of the Savoy London. It's an absolute pleasure and honour to have the manager of such an icon on the podcast. But I just want to start, we were talking on the way in, before we talk about what the Savoy is and its history and your role and other issues, what's going to be happening at the Savoy on New Year's Eve?
Well, on New Year's Eve, we have obviously a number of different restaurants, bars, guest rooms, suites, but we also have a fantastic gala dinner. It's a Venetian ball that we're organizing this year that is open to 200 guests. There are still a few places open and available, but I believe that this will be released in the next year, so it's a little too late. But nevertheless, for the next edition of this gala dinner, we are organizing something absolutely fabulous. We are bringing back the grand ball gala dinner at the Savoy with cocktail reception, champagne, caviar, canapes, followed by a wonderful show including opera singers, Venetian ball, big band, dance, a 5-course tasting menu with beautiful wines, a celebration of the New Year's Eve in our river rooms, watching the fireworks being launched and shot from the London Eye. So it doesn't get much better. Now, there's a price tag to that.
Are we allowed to know the price tag?
Yes, of course. It's £1,500 per head, but that's the price to enjoy all this at the Savoy on the 31st of December.
It's a special evening in a special hotel. Can you just talk for those? I think everyone knows the brand, the Savoy. They probably know the hotel. There were a few people listening from abroad who haven't been there or seen it. Can you explain something about the Savoy, its history, what makes it special, why originally it was such a pioneer in hospitality?
I think you mentioned two words. You just mentioned two words. Pioneer and original. It is the original luxury hotel in London. It was conceived and developed by a theatre impresario called Richard Doyley Cart, who had opened the Savoy Theatre a few years earlier on the Strand, in a place that used to be occupied by the Savoy. It was the Savoy Castle. It was a hospital. And it started in the 13th century with the Count of Savoy being gifted this land by the King of England. And the King of Savoy, is still present at the Savoy. When you arrive, Count Peter is still, reigning supreme on top of our entrance canopy. So Richard Doyley Cart was a theatre impresario, and he was associated with Gilbert and Sullivan and their operettas, which they sold to the US and then went on showing those in the United States. And this is where they enjoyed a lot of success. So he was able to really generate quite the necessary amount and funding to help him conceive and develop a hotel, because what he saw in the United States were buildings that were modern, that were all equipped with electricity, which was not the case back then, lifts or elevators in the US, and but also hotels that already had ensuite bathrooms and forms of communication that were unknown, that enabled the guests to order in-room dining through basically communication pipes that went from that to what became the switchboard later on. So it was the place of the first. It was the first place where the British aristocracy met with the rest of the people, and that was facilitated by the person that Richard Doyley-Carte hired, not as the first general manager, but the second one. The first general manager didn't work out. The Savoy didn't pick up in its infancy. The first few months, the Savoy was not successful until Richard Doyley-Carte was able to convince a very famous hotelier who became very, very famous afterward to come and join. It was César Ritz. And César Ritz, who then, after, when he left the Savoy and created his own hotels in Paris, in London, in Madrid, and in Lisbon, César Ritz accepted against, he originally refused, but then finally accepted to come and run the hotel for Doyley-Carte on two conditions. One was a big check, which Doyley-Carte accepted and paid, and the second condition was to bring his chef, who was Auguste Escoffier, a chef who actually reinvented French cuisine and all the codification and made it much simpler, but also much easier to produce. He is the one who invented the production by brigades, and so this is where you have the garde-manger, the rôtisseurs, etc., the various parties of the kitchen.
So he proceduralized fine food in that kind of sense.
He did, and in a way that enabled then, before you had cooks who would prepare the whole meal, one whole meal by himself. So he would do everything. Now Escoffier divided the task, bit like Ford, he divided the task and the functions in the kitchen, which enabled a much quicker service, which enabled much more covers, and also with the simplification of food and menus, was able to have more people dining much quicker, and this is how those two gentlemen, Ritz and Escoffier, arriving at the Savoy, were able to convince first the Prince of Wales, who was known by Ritz in the south of France, and was actually a friend of Ritz. And Ritz brought the Prince of Wales, who then created a new fashion, which was meeting in public space with the rest of society,
which just wasn't a thing before.
Which was never the case before, where people or the aristocracy used to welcome their guests in their houses, so the Savoy was the first place where that happened. The Savoy was the first place where women were seen in public without being accompanied. So, place of the first. So, pioneering, innovation. This is what you got at the Savoy. The Savoy is the place where, as you mentioned, it was the first lift. You still go to the Savoy, and the red lift, also known as the ascending room, is still in function. Now, back then, it used to take 7 minutes to go from the ground floor to the 7th floor. It take a little bit less now. You had absinthe salt to wake people up if they fainted during their journey to the 7th floor. So a place of the first, and therefore when Ritz and Escoffier started, the business picked up, and it became a huge success.
And then bred a lot of copycat hotels.
Oh, today again, I received an email from someone who had stayed at the Savoy London, the only one. There is one Savoy, it's London. However, the name has been copied throughout the world in many places. This morning, I received an email from a guest who was upset because, and I was just skimming through my email. I said, "Dear Frank, I'm very upset with the experience I am currently not enjoying at the Savoy in Marrakesh." And I responded,
"This has nothing to do with us."
I really do apologize, but it's got absolutely nothing to do. It's got the same name. There are lots of different Savoy. I don't think that this is one thing that was not done right, is the protection of the name. So there are, there are Savoy, laundrette, laundries, and dry cleanings. There are lots of Savoys.
There are plenty of Belmont dry cleaners as well and hairdressers, so you share the problem with others.
So the Savoy, when it opened in 1889, became very, very successful. And I would say that initially actually it was only the south side of the hotel that initially opened in 1889. It's in 1904 that the front of the hotel was built, that the interior courtyard was transformed into a ballroom and the Thames foyer, which gave suddenly the Savoy the ability to actually be their place of choice to organize balls. And that's as of 1905. And this is when the current entrance started to operate. And this is when this famous street, when you arrive at the Savoy, it is said that it's the only street where you drive on the right-hand side. In the UK, I think...
You mean when you turn off in a cab?
You arrive in Savoy Court, you drive on the right-hand side. So there's a bit of a romantic explanation to that, which I found romantic, is that ladies would be arriving in carriages behind the driver on the right-hand side and would have to be dropped next to the theater, and therefore they would open the door. They wouldn't have to go around the carriages. Now, there's also another very practical reason, is that if you would drive on the left-hand side, you would go through the Savoy Court, you would turn left around the fountain, but then imagine at that time the number of carriages would have blocked actually, arriving at the theater, they would have actually blocked the arrival at the Savoy. So I think they negotiated this arrival or this ability to drive on the right-hand side so that the carriages and then the cars would actually, be piling up, but on the right-hand side of the road, therefore not stopping or blocking the access to the Savoy.
What you've just described is, a pioneer as a hotel. It brought good food to London, which, if I think this nation doesn't have a great history of culinary expertise, and it obviously helped do that. And also, I imagine, late Victoria times, you'd be walking into a place that, in terms of the design architecturally and the aesthetic of the interiors, would have just been mind-blowing. Now, I want to come back to what's special about the Savoy today and how it rests on the past whilst presenting its modern face. But let's go to you quickly. Talk about your career, how you got into this industry before arriving at the Savoy a few years ago. How did you get into this industry?
Well. I don't think I've been truthful with myself for a long time. It only happened not so long ago. It came... How did I come into the industry? My parents, did not work in this industry. No one in my family did. I enjoyed a bit of cooking with my mother and grandmother from time to time. But basically, I was going into high school and I was supposed to do a program in France called Sports Studies. You study and that was in team handball. And so I was pretty good, and I was in the regional team. But when I passed the test, I didn't get in because they estimated that I would not grow tall and big enough to actually play in first division. So they decided not to give me a place there, and I was devastated because sport was much more exciting than studying. And then, I arrived in this big, large high school in Strasbourg, and I was failing. I was not interested, not motivated. I was spending my day at the bistro, playing football and smoking cigarettes. So one day, and I remember it was probably in March or something, and I was going to fail that 11th grade. I would have to drop out or to start again at least. And I met this friend of mine who had been in secondary school with me, and I saw him in the morning taking the bus, and he was dressed with a suit and a tie on. He had big suitcases. I said, Philippe, where are you going? said, I'm going to school. Which school are you going to with this? Are you moving? You are you boarding? No, I'm going to my hotel school. I said, what's that?
What is a hotel school?
What's a hotel
Yeah.
school? Well, the hotel school is where we learn how to cook, to serve. We learn about, we learn languages, we learn accounting, finance, marketing, etc. I said, oh, you do? That's interesting. But what are you going to do? Well, I'm going to become a chef and I'm going to travel the world. I said, well, I love languages. I love cooking. I think I love the idea of that. And this is what sparked my interest to apply to go to hotel school. And I entered really into the small door, because I entered really the apprenticeship program at school, which is probably the longer, I would say, curriculum to get to.
Is this in France or in Switzerland?
It's in France, in Strasbourg. And so I applied, and I remember when I passed the interview with the principal, and I went with my father back then. I was 15, and my father had this principal as a history teacher when he was doing his baccalaureate, and he told me at the end of the interview, no, I don't think you're made for this profession. I think you should not. If you wish, we can give you a place in this apprenticeship program to become a cook, a chef, but that's the best we can do for you. I'm okay with that. And as soon as I started, I thrived. Yeah. I loved everything I was doing. I loved everything I was learning. So, of course, then I had the chance to go to do again my technical baccalaureate at the hotel school. Then I was able to do the diploma. Then I did my military service. And then I did my master's in a business school that was jointly coordinated by Cornell University, which had a master's program in hospitality at this business school in Paris. But when I started, I was basically a high school dropout who by chance entered hospitality. Now I was really into sports, but so I had drive, I had motivation. I loved languages. It's not that I was a failure, not because I was bad, just because it was not the right thing for me. So when I entered hotel school, I just loved everything. And my objective was to be able to work in different countries, to learn languages, meet people, working with people, and working in beautiful places. And when I say beautiful places, I remember that this summer before starting hotel school, I went on holiday with my parents in the south of France, and we were in Cannes. And in Cannes, we were on the Croisette, and we passed by this absolutely gorgeous hotel that was developed for the Brits going on a holiday in the south of France, generally during the winter time, the Carlton Hotel. And I passed by, I stopped, I looked at the Carlton, and I said, wow, I want to work in this type of place in the future. That was, so the inspiration. So by chance, I went to hotel school, and then I dropped by and said, well, that's where I want to be.
And so on this picaresque journey through the world and traveling, it's not an easy life being a hotelier. In some respects, it's hard work. And I suppose every few years, you tend to be upsticking and moving somewhere else. Has it all been plain sailing?
No, it hasn't been plain sailing, but it's been very exciting sailing. It's been lots of bumps. There have been storms. There have been, beautiful days with lots of sunshine and a nice wind. And especially now, there will be a little bit of all the above in any place, because it's a lot of responsibility toward your guests, toward your staff, and toward your family. So if you want to have a family doing what I do, you absolutely need to love moving. You need to love being exposed to new cultures, exposed to new climates, environments, political systems, health systems. But if you love it, you'll love it all your life. And so people ask me, okay, what else would you do? I have no idea what else I would do. Yes, I would love to be a rock star. Yeah, right. Yeah, or a professional athlete. Yeah, right. But yes, I love so many professions, but that's mine. And the fact of being an international hotelier it's not pedantic, it's or pompous. It's just that I'm a foreigner everywhere I am, including when I go back. Now we talk about, I'm going to go back on holiday to see my mother in France, in Strasbourg, in the same house where I grew up. But I'm a foreigner. I'm a foreigner even when I cross the channel. I arrive in France. Yes, I speak the language and I have probably the habits and the accents. But I can tell you, I feel like a foreigner. My home is London.
Of the places you worked at before, there are a couple of standout hotels where you really look back fondly on your time there, I guess as general manager, or maybe before when you hadn't reached that role. I mean, you were in Edinburgh for a bit.
I was in Edinburgh, absolutely. I was in Edinburgh for 5 years, between 11 and 2016.
So that's Roccoforte and Balmoral.
It's Roccoforte, the Balmoral. It's originally the North British Station Hotel.
It's a lovely hotel, isn't it?
It's a lovely hotel. It's one of those hotels that actually were developed early 20th century with the development of the railways throughout Europe. Actually,
Yes.
You find these grand hotels that were, because people suddenly were traveling and they needed a place to stay. So these grand hotels were developed on purpose as luxury as luxury hotels, which is not the case for all hotels. You look at London, you got some beautiful hotels such as Browns or Claridge's, but they were not purpose built. They probably precede the Savoy in terms of existence, but they were there were a number of townhouses that were basically put together. Now of course, they are beautiful places and they offer beautiful services, but purpose-built hotels. The Savoy was not a railway hotel. In Canada, you have Fairmont, which actually Savoy is affiliated with Fairmont. But Fairmont, although it originates in San Francisco with the Fairmont Hotel, the Fairmont brand was developed by Canadian Pacific, the Canadian Railways, to develop their grand castle hotels throughout Canada and in every grand city. So these hotels. So I worked at the Balmoral, where I had the chance to discover again a new facet of the UK, because I had worked in London for 2 years in the 90s. And then I arrived in Scotland. Obviously, it's to a certain extent, it is a different country with its habits, with its culture, with its language still to an extent. But yet, it's in the UK, and therefore, I was not discovering a totally new country, but still, it was very different.
I want to come on to what you think the job comprises and what makes a good experience and a good person in your role. But first of all, I guess you get a call and it's a bit like being called up. The call you can't say no to wherever you are in the world. I guess you're in Canada or the States.
I was in Canada.
You're in Canada. Toronto, yeah. I mean, you get asked to drive for Ferrari or play for Real Madrid and you get the call from the Savoy. Did you have to think about it?
When I answered the call, I did not know what it was for. When she said, Frank, it's for the Savoy London, but automatically I knew it was the call. I knew that I was the right person for the job. I did not say so. I said, all right, tell me about it, etc. But I knew it was the right place for me at the right time in my career. I knew I would have to speak to my wife, who, having 2 sons at university in Canada, COVID, moving from a house we just had bought a year prior, would be. But as soon as I called my wife, I arrived at work, I called my wife and said, I just had a call with a headhunter who has offered me to apply for the Savoy in London. And say, okay, I know. Go ahead. I know what you're going to say. Yeah, it's all right. Let's do it. I'm very lucky to have actually, to have a wife who understands. But it takes a strong support like this to be able to succeed in what you do. Doing it by myself, I'm not sure I would have been where I am today.
I think what's fascinating, like when you get the call to take on running somewhere like the Savoy, I almost think it'd be easier in a way to get the call from a faded hotel where it was obvious that it needs to be turned around and there's not that much that you just to do a little bit and you leave a legacy. The issue with the Savoy is that it's not like you're taking over a problem child, at least from a brand perspective. It's a well-loved, hugely respected institution, and no one takes on a job either just for the status quo. So you're going to want to change things. So what were you thinking when you took it on, and what was your plan? What did you want to change, or how did you want to take it forward?
You only live once, so if you have an opportunity like this, yes, you're right in a sense. I worked for the Ritz-Carlton in Toronto, and it's a beautiful property, etc. But what's my legacy? What's my imprint? Yes, the hotel has done well, and we've scored well on all our performance, the parameters on which we are being measured against. Yes, but no one will even mention Franck Arnold. I think in the future, I've done my time. I did well. And because I did well, I was offered the possibility of working for another big luxury brand to apply for this job at the Savoy. But having the ability to impact and influence a historical institution like the Savoy, to me, I think there is no grander recompense and reward than to have the ability to do something about it, to have an impact, to leave a legacy maybe, but change it for the better. As the MD of the Savoy, I really feel that I'm the custodian of what happens. I'm the one. I'm the bridge. I'm the link between my predecessor and my successor. I don't know when there will be a successor. There will be, but my role is to make sure that when I hand it over, it's in a better shape than when I received it. And in a better shape, I mean, it needs to remain true to what it is. It is still the original luxury, but in its DNA, it's got innovation, it's got pioneering in its DNA written on it. This, whatever we do, we need to think that we just can't leave it the way it is. We need to gradually make it better in terms of product, but also in terms of service. And luxury in hospitality is a combination of those two parameters. It's the product, the physical aspect, the tangible. And you got the intangible, which is the service, which is the way we have. Probably 80% of our job is the impact and influence we have on the culture of the organization that we run. And 20% now, I have been working very hard with the stakeholders, with ownership to invest in the property. So we have started a quite large renovation
In
program.
the product side of
From the product side, which of course enables me to have an impact, because then that's when you work with, of course, ownership, the various stakeholders, the board, but also the corporate offices with all people who want to have a say at things. From an operating standpoint, from a design standpoint, from a legal standpoint, from a marketing standpoint. And you have to bring everybody around this table and come up with a project that everybody will be happy with, that will be endorsed and funded by ownership and approved by corporate and, of course, by your own team. So it's putting a lot of opinions around the table and
it's hard, isn't it? Because apart from the vast sums of money involved, it is incredibly disruptive to the operations of a hotel, isn't it? When you refurbish, it's not an easy thing to do.
Yes and no. It is very disruptive for the operation, but our role when we embark into a renovation program is to ensure that the guest doesn't know it is even happening. And that's a challenge. Other hotels have done that extremely well, such as Claridge's, where they have digged another 5 floors in the basement, added another one, and they were still operating. We are now operating, having 50 keys out. The whole elevation of the Savoy is being renovated. We have not received one noise complaint since we started in July. We've also renovated what used to be the Thames foyer, the very famous place where we serve breakfast, but especially afternoon tea, which was a beautiful place, but it did not meet our current needs. And it did not satisfy the needs of the guests staying at the hotel, who after 7 p.m. would go through that place and it would be dead. So again, we were able to convince ownership, came up with a plan, with a concept, with all sorts of calculations to ensure that it was a sound investment. to transform the Thames Foyer, which is now gallery, and which now boasts a few more seats in a beautiful, gorgeous environment. And in order to bring life in the evening past 7 p.m., we have added another bar at the Savoy in this gallery, and also an entrance, a passageway to get from the staircases, the main lobby, take the staircases down, arrive in the up, what used to be called the Upper Thames Foyer, and we have created a scone shop called Scoff, in homage to Mr. Escoffier. So you have scoff, but you also have scones and you have coffee. So it is the place where you're going to have the most beautiful, intricate, sophisticated, crazy scones. And so we open and we produce 60 beautiful scones between passion fruit and raspberry, strawberry, but all decorated beautifully, like those crazy cupcakes that came to life in the United States in the 90s, 2000s. And so we opened that gallery. And next to Scoff, we have created a flower shop where we also sell our Christmas gifts. So because we have a florist who is a very talented, our head florist is a very talented florist. She's the one who actually came up with the whole decoration concept of the Savoy during festive. And if you go to the Savoy, if you have been to the Savoy over the festive period, you will see how elegant, glamorous, whimsical this decoration is. And you enter, we've got literally tens, if not hundreds of people going through the doors of the Savoy, of course, to enjoy afternoon tea, breakfast, lunches, dinners, drinks, weddings, meetings, etc. But you got a lot of them just coming to take a picture because they want to immortalize that time, that stay, that day during the festive season at the Savoy. It is one of those staple of the festive season in London.
You've talked about a lot of the improvements you've made to the building and that side of it, and to the decorations and these wonderful things. What about the service innovations under your tenure? Have you introduced anything there?
Yes, I would say yes. On the product side, we have done a lot. We have created a new restaurant, 1890, together with Gordon Ramsay, which is now a Michelin star restaurant.
And that's the Savoy Grill.
The Savoy Grill. The Savoy, Gordon Ramsay has been involved with the Savoy for 21 years. So the Savoy Grill is nothing new. So, Gordon Ramsay is a big personality. We had to ensure that how he would want to do it and how we would accept that he did it, needed a lot of very honest conversations and conditions by which, we would welcome the extension of the agreement that we had with him at the grill to take over the River restaurant and to create a new restaurant called 1890. And I must say that after now, for almost 4.5 years at the Savoy, this partnership is strong and it goes from strength to strength. It's not always evident to combine cultures at work. But in terms of service and product, what we have done is to bring about a partnership who was willing to invest, because he was willing to invest and renovate the grill, and launch the River restaurant, invest in 1890, which is a fine dining French gastronomic restaurant. And these are not easy decisions because they are very heavy investments. So this we have innovated by bringing and extending this partnership. So in terms of product, we've done that. We've created, we've got the Beaufort bar, we've got the American bar, then we've got the gallery bar now, which is very novel for the Savoy because we are bringing back life after 7 p.m. in the heart, literally the heart of the Savoy, because the foyer is the heart. And the heart of the Savoy was not beating after 7 p.m. We had to bring life because when you went from the lobby to the Beaufort bar to the River restaurant, sometimes to the meeting space, the private meeting rooms, and you saw that space without life, it was depressing. So this enabled us to continue being at the forefront of what we do in terms of of course, in the center of the hotel, but bring something again new and innovate with scoff, with the florist, with the bar, and bring something totally new. Last Saturday, we served 593 guests in that space. 593. So that's over 200 for breakfast, over 200 guests for afternoon tea, and around 150, 160 guests for dinner. So it is a fully fledged, restaurant serving, different things at different times of the day. So you asked me the question about service. Because the product, it's a question of developing a product, it's having the right concept, the funding, and bringing the teams of architects, decorators, project managers.
Having a bit of
surveyors.
taste, I think, is important in that. Yeah,
absolutely.
And style
Well,
and elan.
Absolutely. I think that's very important. And it's not only my ability, but my team's ability to develop the right propositions with the design companies, with the designers, with the architects, and convey this idea that will be supported and financed by the ownership group is absolutely critical. And how we bring those ideas about is a question of the board trusting me and my team to come with the right ideas and concept. And then we are challenged. Some of the things we wanted to do, we did not, and finally we end up with something which is a strong product. Now, in terms of service, it is more to me about how we interact with our customers, whom we call guests, because they are guests, because it's always the impression of that they are invited, although they pay an awful amount of money or a lot of money to stay, to dine, etc. But they are our guests. And as guests, we are hosts. So in luxury hospitality, we have an obligation of delivering at a certain level of standards. And these are the fundamentals. And the fundamentals is the technicality of the jobs. In the food we produce, in how we serve, how we clear, how we stand, how we dress. But it's also giving the ability, once you are covering all the standards that you want to deliver your experience, and you're covering your fundamentals, you're technically sound, it's how are you going to do that? And it's not easy, because we are dealing with the majority of our guests are, in our case, they are English speakers, whether they are from the UK, from the US, from Canada. We have a clientele which is the vast majority is Anglo-Saxon, let's say. So how you interact with your guest in English is fundamental. And I can tell you, it's the majority of our staff were not born here or are not native English speakers. The language is the vehicle for communication that enables us to create an emotion while we interact with people. So it's critical that we find people who are at ease and have a good command of the language, so that they can express and create a rapport. But it's also, for us, we want to give our staff, as much as we can, the ability, once they are delivering technically at the right level, to be themselves.
Yes. Which is that's the magic, the bit you can't define, isn't it? In the experience.
It's the authenticity.
It's the thing that you pick up immediately when you get badly trained or staff who don't want to be there. You pick it up somehow, don't you, in a room?
But what I'm saying is that you can have an excellent level of service, but no interaction, no personalization, and it comes with how do you interact with that guest? But it goes beyond that. It goes beyond that by creating a genuine interest for the people we serve.
Perhaps the hardest and most important thing of what you do is, as you say, you're the manager, the CEO, effectively, of a small army of 650 people. How do you hire and retain and push that into your staff? It's incredibly hard to do, and it's not like it's easy to hire in hospitality in most countries at the moment.
It is not. It is not only in Britain. Yes, Brexit hasn't helped. It made things much more complicated, because we used to have the ability to hire people like me, who trained, in these hotel schools, who learned to be a waiter. It's a job. It's a real job. It's it requires training. It is about selecting the right talent. It is about welcoming them, onboarding them, training them, and then coaching them, correcting, improving, We have a very strong culture of feedback. We thrive on feedback because feedback is gold for us. We need to be open to criticism and we need to act upon it in order to avoid making the same mistake the next day. And the difficulty we've had is not any longer to hire, but is to retain. Once you spend 6 months at the Savoy, you can apply to other jobs which are bigger, pay more, in virtually everywhere else. So it is a challenge. It is a challenge for us. We have now reduced that. We've done a lot to make sure we've got a superb. We renovated our staff cafeteria. It's called Backstage, and you should come and try it. The food
definitely
we
will.
serve that.
Yeah.
It's a restaurant, and it's very, very important. We need to pay attention to that, of course, to the salary, the conditions, but also how we treat people. How we nurture those relationships. We've had the results of our engagement, our own internal survey on staff engagement, and we've had the highest score that we've ever had at the Savoy. So it's paying off. Talking about all these innovations, etc., is what we do, 20% of our time, but the rest of the time, it is about being able to inspire, to engage with the people who are actually going to deliver the experience. I'm not the one serving, I'm not the one cleaning, changing the rooms. It's the staff, our colleagues are absolutely. Take this pyramid, this normal pyramid of any organization where I'm the boss and I'm sitting on top. Well, you take that pyramid and you invert it. I'm at the bottom. I'm here guiding. Imagine this thing moving. I'm the one who is handling the responsibility, but I'm the one supporting my directors who are then guiding and leading their managers who are then here to support the line staff who deliver the experience. Our reputation is based on the thousands of interactions that we have every day with the guests, but also with each other. And that's absolutely fundamental to our ability, and the staff knows it. They know it's in there. They're empowered to do things. They're empowered to be themselves. They're empowered to take decisions. And they're not going to be blamed for that, provided it's done with the right intent in mind.
And as ever in life, it's a truism, isn't it? That when you do that well, it looks very simple, but my word, it takes a lot of work to get all those moving parts working in the same direction, which is the skill of your job.
Hospitality is not rocket science. We're not throwing the next rocket on the moon. We're not. But the complication lies with the thousands of interactions and how you do them, how well you do it, or how badly you do it. Is how you're going to be evaluated, and this is how it's going to turn into either positive emotion experience and then memories, or not.
In London, what are the other one or two hotels you most admire in your competitor set? That's a hard question, I know.
Well, for me, it's historical hotels, and for different reasons. I love the Ritz and I love the Claridge's. They're competitors.
They go well together, the three of you.
Well, they used to be associated, or actually the Claridge's used to be part of the Savoy group of hotels. And I love the Connaught as well, I must say.
Yeah.
In terms of, it's more boutique-ish, but the level and the variety of services. I love these hotels. I love the Savoy first and foremost, of course. But I have a lot of respect for those. And there are lots of new hotels coming into the marketplace that are quite,
they're quite impressive.
Quite impressive, and they offer a lot, and they are, it's London never stops.
London never stops. And one hotel outside of from the rest of the world that is particularly in your heart, what would it be?
I love the Plaza Athénée in Paris. That's one hotel. It's so French. I mean, it's so French. And whether you like it or not, that's another thing. But it's, they do things extremely well. It's all in the details. It's but at the same time, it's pioneering, and I love the fact of being able to evolve without breaking everything, but constantly being exciting. The other hotel, which is probably my favorite hotel when it comes to, even I go and stay there, it's La Mamounia in Marrakesh.
Oh, wow. Wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, I've got many hotels. But La Mamounia in Marrakesh, because, again, it's a historic hotel. It's an incredible city of Marrakesh. We have so many things happening, but all the services. And I think it's itself, it's a city in itself. I don't know if you have been, but it's between the gardens and the spa and the rooms and everything is done in such a refined, in a refined sense of luxury, but of Moroccan luxury. It's not British luxury, it's not French luxury, it is Moroccan luxury, and it's historical again.
You describe luxury well in terms of what it is, which is product and service, but can you put into a sentence what your definition of luxury is in terms of the experience? What for you is the definition of luxury as the guest, as the consumer?
Luxury for me, it is about having the time to enjoy experiences which offer you choices, refinement, and emotions.
Brilliant. I love that definition. Quick one as well. Have you noticed any, in the last 20 years, are there any top level themes that you've noticed guests are desiring, or any changes in behaviors?
I think gradually we're going to have to be much more conscientious about the environment, about being sustainable. We are being, my ambition at the Savoy is to become carbon neutral within 3 years. That's a big endeavor because it's the Savoy. It's an old building. It's a building dating back, from 1889. It's very tricky, and but we can, I think, offset almost everything. We still have a challenge with our boiler, which are basically running on gas. But there is a Swan project that we are going to be taking part. Well, we are going to be maybe taking part of, which will enable us to produce energy with much lower carbon footprint. And we're already totally single plastic use free. So there is not in back of house or in front of house. So sustainability, I think, is very important. I think not only for, we always say, it's, people now, I think that more than 50%, 70% of our guests traveling are now sensitive to that and are willing to make choices based on the commitment of those organizations, and including hotels, which are doing something about it. So I think sustainability for me is a big one.
When you've had a week of fine food at work, when you go home, what's your most non-luxury dish you and your wife like to eat?
So if my sons are here, I will basically bake baby back ribs, but I marinate the night before because my sons are big carnivores.
This is sounding a bit cultured and high-end though.
It's very simple. You marinate them, you bake them, and then you baste. In the summertime, you do that over the barbecue. Otherwise, they're very simple. A lovely thing. It was just a chicken roast, and a puree of potato or mashed potatoes.
Perfect. So these last 4 questions, we'll ask everyone the same. The first one is, what most irritates you about this industry or your industry?
It's fragmented, and therefore we are never able. It's very difficult to come up with commercial strategies that airlines are able to adopt. And because we are very fragmented, we are automatically extremely generous with what we do, and guests know it. And sometimes that irritates me because we need to do it. It's a must. It's part of the cost of doing business. But what irritates me are the professional guests. But that irritates me doesn't mean that I'm not dealing with it on a professional basis. Of course, we deal with it, but it has a tendency. When I smell that, I tend to be a bit irritated.
Interesting. Never had that answer. That's a good one. Second question, what most concerns you about the world we're leaving the next generation?
I think it's the state of the planet itself. In terms of environment, it's now or never, and we need to act now. And everyone at our own level, whether it is at home or at work, I think we have a contribution to make. And we have a contribution to make to influence the right people to actually do so as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. So if you had to give up your job tomorrow and do something else, what would you do?
I would probably open up my own little auberge in the south of France and do it again.
Yeah. So you're an addict for the industry.
Yeah, and I love, when I'm not doing this, yes, I play a lot of golf, I do a lot of sports, but I'm with my family. I love to host and receive and be with friends. I'm a very sociable animal. I would be unhappy being, lost in the boonies. No, I would love to be lost in the boonies, but having lots of people coming and visit and having good time together. Yes, that's what I would do.
And in the next 5 years, last question, what's the most exciting thing for you personally?
For me, it's to see my kids grow and start their life, and to see them evolve, and to see them becoming, responsible, respectable, good people. And that's probably the most exciting thing. And and having the chance to see that, to observe that, and being healthy doing this.
Yeah. Franck, thank you. That was an absolute tour de force of hospitality. You're such an amazing advocate for the very best of hospitality, not only in the hotel you look after, but in your approach to the spirit of it all. And just thank you very much. That was great.
Well, thank you for allowing me speaking to you. Thank you very much.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. This has been What the Luxe. You can find us on socials at Matreform. And drop us any questions or comments on Twitter using the hashtag #WhatTheLuxe. Or if you're a luxury brand looking for strategy and design that goes beyond the banal, get in touch via hello@matreform.com and chat to one of our consultants.